Hey everybody, it's Tom, and I wanted to come to you guys today to talk about the fourth chapter in Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It's kind of consummating section. To quickly recapitulate, the Pedagogy of the Oppressed opens with a call to radicality. Radicality being understood as a commitment to reality all the way through its course. That commitment precludes the indulgence of ideological certitude, which translates into sectarianism, where we set up a framework that actually insulates us from reality and which actually engenders violence in subtle and overt ways, because the reality cannot be tolerated if the ideology is to be maintained. And this in turn translates into great sort of social disturbances, disequilibria. The radical eschews those indulgences in the conviction, the faith, that as a subject, as a free being in mind, he or she can engage reality in a transformative fashion, actually more effectively without those sorts of strictures. That's all rather kind of cognitive bent, which then assumes a more socio-political gesture, or not, that's not aspect, not gesture, when one stops to consider how everything that we've said thus far relates to whether or not we are existing in an oppressive context, either as an oppressor or as the oppressed. And it is the oppressed, those who participate in the latter category, who have the responsibility of emancipating human potential in a more general way. Because as long as we are stuck within dyad of oppressed versus oppression, we are cut off from our humanity. We're acting beneath our dignity. Because that kind of relationship is actually in part what undergirds the penchant for sectarianism, which is a strategy, if you like, to elude or evade the manner in which an oppressive social milieu gets in the way of real freedom, real love, real compassion. This is sort of the backdrop that I'm just sort of sketching as we proceed toward the fourth chapter, with those kind of axiomatic bases being established, and in turn with Paulo Freire having made certain suggestions as to what a pedagogy of the oppressed actually is. What is a mode of education which encourages a consciousness that allows us to move beyond these dilemmas. Now, and the gist, or the pith, the essence of that methodology is in a commitment to the dialogue as opposed to anti-dialogue. And the anti-dialogical is what is specifically characteristic of an oppressive society and an oppressor mindset, and exhibits itself certain crucial moments, which then he outlines in chapter 4. What are those crucial moments? Just to state them right down the line, there's a moment of conquest, division and rulership, manipulation, cultural invasion. And these hang together. The most brutal sounding of the terms, conquest, is of course fundamental to the whole complex. It is where a person or a set of persons assert themselves to negate the freedom of the other or others in the interest of their own agenda. And in order to do this, oftentimes The strategy is one of division and rulership. So you enter into a society violently, whether that be in a military or economic or social or cultural fashion, and you sow the seeds, having leveraged certain advantages of power, of division within the invaded population, making them more susceptible to the third term, manipulation, which instills in them an alternative set of values, a set of values which adheres to the standard of the oppressor and which attenuates and eventually dissolves in, or potentially dissolves in a very lamentable manner, the connection of these people with their historical ground. And this is, of course, then the final moment, cultural invasion, where the very identity of the invaded population or person is utterly compromised, and they are transmuted into the status of an object utterly to serve the action of the oppressor. The counterpoint is, and what's going on in the background of all those moments is the idea that the truth is something which is held and controlled exclusively by the oppressor, and it is deposited or inserted or added upon or unto the oppressed to silence them, and to silence and annihilate, if you will, their own relationship with the real. Now, of course, it's not actually possible ontologically to completely sever that cord, but we can be pushed into deep delusion, deep error as to what our actual relationship with the real is. The dialogical mentality, the dialogical approach, is the antidote, if you like, to these moments. And it itself can be seen as having a series of counterpoints, counter moments. Namely, these, instead of conquest, you have an ideal of cooperation. Cooperation, meaning that we all act together as autonomous agents in synchrony, if you like. I do not act for you, you do not act for me, we act together. We cooperate. And if I am coming from outside of a cultural milieu, I have to strive to come to a position of solidarity with those in that milieu. So again, that we are working together in accord, not in we're not in a situation where I am, acting messianically. If you act messianically, then you have devolved to a condition of oppression, right? In lieu of division and rulership and domination, then, from the point of communication, we then extend to a point of unity with an eye to liberation, emancipation, freedom. So our cooperation strives to bring about a perception of human solidarity which can base or ground action in history, conscious action in history, praxis, which is real freedom. And then from unity, in order to liberate, we come to the third term, which is in lieu of manipulation, organization. So that the energy which builds up from cooperation and unity, the eye of emancipation, then activates a set of social relations and engagements that reconstellate the structures physically, economically, socially, spiritually within a society to bring us to a point of cultural synthesis as opposed to cultural invasion, where the entire domain or space is one of engagement. We all, both as individuals and as a society, really inextricably realize our humanity as creative actors in the universe, right? Now, the easy path is the former path. The path of conquest is the weight of inertia, and there's a kind of lamentable comfort which can attend upon existing within that framework, even as a member of the oppressed, which reflects the manner in which we can lamentably internalize the standards of the oppressor, and in virtue of that internalization be distracted from the call to a greater destiny, a greater, more human destiny. You know, the more challenging path, but with the path which leads to real freedom, love, solidarity, is the path of dialogue, which necessitates, which I don't know if I've said this explicitly, but what it necessitates is you take the other person seriously, because that is the only way that you and I, that all of us can advance forward. And we have to do that with boldness, with courage, and with an appreciation that this is really the calling of human being, right? So that's how Freire concludes his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, setting up this structure of dialectical tension between the dialogical and the anti-dialogical, and calling us to the former, calling us to dialogue as a way of life, and really as a way to revolutionize our social relationships so that we are no longer immured in this claustrophobic and degraded scenario of oppression in which so many of us find ourselves. Now, what has struck me in reading this book is that apart from its Ivy's implications for social struggle, is its deeply personal quality, because the task at hand is not simply the task of revising outwardly the structures of society. We have to look at how we are relating with other people, and how we have internalized the values of the oppressor in subtle and not so subtle ways, and how vigilance is requisite to move beyond the detention that our adherence to those sorts of values subjects us to. Sorry for the dangled preposition there. Oh well, so it happens. Anyway, guys, that's chapter 4, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire. Check it out, seriously. It's a fantastic book. It really is. One of the best. And thank you guys, by the way, for watching my little videos here on Facebook. I think I'm going to go through the book again in a few weeks, but I'll put those also up on YouTube as well. And I guess that's all for now. I guess I'll catch you guys on the flip side.